Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question. Basically, they had watched a documentary about some hunter-gatherer tribes down in the Amazon, and they noticed that their physiques really didn't look that impressive. They're like, they just look normal. They look like average people. I don't understand. They get plenty of protein, plenty of exercise. Why aren't they really, really fit? So let me put on my +5 cap of weaponsmithing, do some crafting, and let's knock this question out. All right, it's kind of funny that someone says that because it's like, well, what do you think average should look like? Average should be in shape, and people who see these people are like, well, they don't look like bodybuilders. They don't have huge amounts of muscle mass. I don't understand. Well, why would you think that they would? They don't have access to steroids. They don't have access to progressive overload in the gym. Why would you think they would be looking like what you guys think of, like fitness models and stuff? All right, there's a big difference there. What you need to understand is that these men are in shape. Meaning they have good endurance, they are physically active all day, they, like you said, they get plenty of protein and stuff. These men hunt and fish and gather food all day long. And you know what? Here's the reality. Being in shape means having just a little bit of fat on your gut. It also means having good endurance, good stamina, but only the amount of muscle mass that your nutrition can support. I mean, I have way more muscle mass than any natural person on earth. And I know people will be like, what? Well, that's true. All right, that's just a simple reality. You are never going to find anybody my size out in nature, in the wild, in a hunter-gatherer society. That's the real world. Welcome to reality. Muscle mass is metabolically expensive. We as a species are designed to survive famines, ice ages, everything else, and every bit of muscle that we have has to be efficient. Well, these hunter-gatherers don't have huge amounts of muscle because they don't have access to anabolic drugs. They gain the amount of muscle that their body can gain or it needs to gain to do the activities they need to do, whether that means running down an animal with a spear and packing it home. Well, they have enough muscle to do that. You know what? How many guys do you see who work in construction who are fairly muscular but look exactly like these guys do? That's the thing that you need to understand, the difference between being in shape versus being a fitness model. All right, people don't seem to understand the difference. These fitness models are not necessarily in shape. Now, they might have enhanced performance because of the drugs and all the activity they do around it, but are they really in shape just because they're ripped and have big biceps? All right, that doesn't necessarily make you in shape. And it's interesting because, yeah, these men don't look like that. They look very much like manual laborers that you see. A little bit of muscle mass, a little bit of definition, arms and shoulders and stuff. And sometimes even a little bit of gut. Sometimes they have abs, sometimes they don't. It all depends on their overall diet and activity. But you know what? A lot of them try to get a little bit of a gut. Do you know why? Because there's going to be months that come up where their food is scarce. They can't get enough food, and then that gut's going to turn into a six-pack when they starve down a little. And they have to give more of their food that they find to their children and wives when they're finding less. They're going to lose a little bit of weight up doing all that activity. Then they'll have abs again, then they'll come back and have a little bit of a gut again. But yeah, a lot of these Amazon and Aboriginal tribes and everything else look exactly like manual laborers. Like many of the manual laborers, you know, the guys who do construction, the guys who do stuff like that, they look like average guys. Because they're not in there trying to deadlift 500-600 pounds. They're not using anabolic drugs. So why would they look like someone who does? Reality check, guys. Being in shape means the ability to survive, the ability to have all the skills that you need to survive in a harsh environment. That's what fitness is. Good combination of muscle, stamina, flexibility, all of that thing, all of those things. And these men have that. I can promise you most of these men that you're seeing, they're pretty strong. I mean, they hunt animals all day, they fish all day, they do physical activity all day. And their ability to do that activity sometimes for a long, strenuous amount of times means whether they eat or not. Because sometimes there's what you call persistence hunting. There's having to track an animal that you've wounded, to track it down on foot. Or when you do get that animal, guess what? Sometimes they've got to pack it home. They might go kill a 50 or 100-pound animal. They might gut it out there, or they might try to bring the whole thing home, but then they got to get it home. All right, you go find a 100-pound animal, whether it's a wild pig or a wild deer or anything else, and you kill it 4 or 5 miles from home. in one of these tribes where you got to get it home. Now, sometimes there's groups of men doing it, but nonetheless, they're still packing a pretty heavy weight a long distance. They are in shape. And I would say to these guys who work out all the time, they go to a gym for an hour a day, and that's their physical activity, who think that they're in shape. Are you in shape? Could you go run down a deer with a spear or a bow, kill it, and bring it home and carry it home 5 miles? If your answer is no, and you think that you're in shape, I'm going to laugh at you and say that your 17, 18-inch biceps and your six-pack don't mean shit. You're not actually in shape. You're not physically fit. You just have good body composition. And there is a world of difference between the two. But at the end of the day, what you need to understand, these guys don't have huge amounts of muscle mass because they don't have a need for a huge amount of muscle mass. They've only got to pack a 100-pound deer 5 miles. They don't have to deadlift a 500-pound deer. Yeah, they don't got to do any of that. They just need to be able to gather food all day, whether it's firewood, and pack pounds and pounds of firewood every day for hours and hours a day. Other days gather all sorts of nuts and berries. Other days fish. Other days go hunt down a deer or a pig and pack it home. That's what they do all day. They need to be strong enough and fit enough to do that. And they are. But the thing is, the human body doesn't gain muscle beyond your strength capacity. So again, guys who say, well, I don't want to get really strong, but I want to get big. Well, how do you think you get big? How do you think you add that muscle mass? You add that by lifting a heavy weight. All right? And they don't have to lift a heavy weight, a truly heavy weight. They just got to pack a moderate heavy weight a good distance. They have as much muscle as they need to throw a 100-pound deer over their shoulders and hump it 3, 4, 5 miles back to the tribe. That's the amount of muscle mass they need for their job. That's the amount they have. And any more than that goes to waste for their environment. Specific adaptation to imposed demands is the rule of training, but you know, training applies to everything you do in life. Your physical job, your hunting, gathering, if you live in those tribes, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as any other physical stressor. You adapt specifically to the stress that you subject the body to. And they've adapted to have a strength stamina, to be able to do what they do for hours and hours a day, and to do that, and they have the amount of muscle they need to do that. If you want more muscle than them, you're going to have to get stronger than them. That's the simple reality. When you see guys who aren't that strong who say that, well, you know, I don't need to gain strength to gain size. Well, you're on tons of drugs. That's how it works. Because everyone else has to be proportionately strong to the weight that they need to pack around, the weight that they need to lift. That's what makes muscles bigger and stronger when drugs aren't in the equation. How much muscle do you need to actually lift that weight? And anything beyond that, again, that's why it's so hard to gain muscle. Humans gain strength and we gain muscle slower than most other mammals. The reason? It's metabolically expensive. We're designed to survive ice ages and famines, and every pound of muscle that you gain could make the difference between starving or not, between having too much of a metabolic rate. And people say, well, that's a fuel reserve you could burn off. Yeah, but while you're running around, you're losing fat and everything relatively quicker than someone else who has 5 pounds less muscle than you once the food runs out and you're having to hunt on foot and you've gone 5 days without eating because you're still trying to track the animals down that you need in an ice age or a famine. That muscle becomes metabolically expensive, and the people who gain muscle really, really easily, they all died out. Those are not your ancestors, they're dead. The people who survived are the ones who can control their metabolic rate because they gain muscle only at the rate that is required. That their metabolism doesn't go up any faster than is required for them to survive and complete the task that they need to survive and stay alive. And oftentimes that task requires muscle and strength because, I mean, they are physically active. But if you expect these men to look like fitness models without drugs and without access to really heavy weights that they're lifting, you don't understand how the body works. But these men are fit. In fact, many of them from a true fitness perspective are very possibly fitter than the guys that you think of on YouTube as fitness guys, or many of the fitness models that you look at. Many of those guys, you put them in any sort of real physical activity, survival situation, they're going to putter out and die. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.